Summer mine, yeah, the summer's mine, yeah, the summer's mine. But she's still like, can you hit it with your OVO goose on? I'm like, what are you on? Told me that she too on. Hot, that's cute, we a few on.
I love to get on. I love to get too on. I love to get on. I love to get too on. I love to get on. I love to get too on. I love to get on. I love to get too.
Hi, and welcome back to Second Take. I'm your co-host, Lucas Silverman.
I'm your co-host, Julian Smith.
And we're going to get started on today's topics, which is going to be discussing Game 5 of the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the San Antonio Spurs. It wasn't even close. It was 117-89 Spurs. They really took control in the second quarter and never looked back. Going in the half with a double-digit lead, only expanding it, outscoring the Thunder by nearly 20 points in the third, and after that quarter, it was basically a done deal. So I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think the Spurs are going to close it out in Game 6 in Oklahoma City, or do you think OKC has an answer to the San Antonio Spurs?
I feel like OKC definitely has an answer. I feel like this win had a lot to do with playing at home. Spurs have one of the best home court advantages in the NBA. They went back to playing Spurs basketball, which they did play in the first two games of the series, having everyone score, having incorporated Popovich's fast-paced offense. So we really saw them get back to their natural state when they returned back to San Antonio.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you on that. I think Oklahoma City will win Game 6 at home, and then it'll be really close in Game 7, because throughout this entire series, I've been expecting a close game, but every game has been decided by double-digit points. And I think it's because that the teams are so evenly matched that it just depends on who shows up. And if one player or one person doesn't show up, the other team capitalizes on it. For example, in last night's game, only 3 Oklahoma City Thunder were in double figures: Durant, Westbrook, and Reggie Jackson. You need more production from Serge Ibaka. You need more production from bench players such as Steven Adams, Jeremy Lamb. You just can't depend on Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant to carry the team. I know Kevin Durant had 25 points and Westbrook had 21 points, but you need more production from supporting players, whereas the San Antonio Spurs had almost 7 players in double figures. Patty Mills had 9 points, which would have gotten them 7 players. So they had so much support, and only one person only had above 20, and that was Manu Ginobili. So they were balanced. They had a great game last night. Again, it's going to come down to Game 7 at San Antonio. It's going to be I think that game will come down to the wire. It's not going to be a blowout, in my opinion. And I'm just waiting to see that one close game. But the Thunder need more production in order to take it to a Game 7. Because if it's the same situation from last night, I don't think the Thunder have a chance.
Yeah, definitely. The Thunder, the way they play, they can rely on Westbrook and KD to kind of just carry them through the whole game. But they cannot do that against the San Antonio Spurs. The San Antonio Spurs are a completely different playing team. I feel like you cannot just count on Westbrook and KD to kind of just guide you and just take over the game. Just because the way the Spurs play, it's completely the opposite. Everyone is involved in the game. They pass the ball. They move. They're moving. So that's why, for instance, at least I think it was six San Antonio players were all above 10 points. So just like the way that they play, the Thunder cannot rely on the way that they are used to playing, and that is KD and Westbrook kind of just taking over the game. Yeah. You need more. Westbrook needs to involve other people more. He was shooting very well last night. He was into the game. So was KD. But you need to get everybody involved. He needs to play that role of the point guard more, just to get his teammates into the game.
And I also think it's going to be a tough matchup for the Thunder going into Game 6 because last night was the first time in a while that the Spurs have beaten Oklahoma City with Serge Ibaka on the floor. Again, remember, Game 1 and 2 in San Antonio beat the Thunder and went up 2-0 without Serge Ibaka on the floor. games 3 and 4 were different. Serge Ibaka played, Thunder took advantage, and he seemed to be the X factor or the difference maker in this series. Whereas last night was the first time that San Antonio took care of Oklahoma City with Serge Ibaka on the floor, and I just think that boosts their confidence tremendously, and I think it's going to be a little bit closer than people expect in Game 6. It's not going to be easy for Oklahoma City, especially since the Spurs are having such a good offensive series, except only at home thus far. I want to see that production happen on the road. That's really interesting to see. So I'm just going to be curious. I want to know how Oklahoma City responds, and I want to see maybe, in my opinion, if Kevin Durant and Westbrook can get over 20 and they have one other player get over 20 points, if they have 3 players get over 20 points, I think they have a very good chance of forcing a Game 7 based on the fact that Kevin Durant's involved, Russell Westbrook's involved, they're producing, they're into the game, they're not nervous, and then you just need like a Reggie Jackson, a Serge Ibaka to get 20 points, and you're in pretty good shape in my opinion.
I completely agree. I think it also had a lot to do with the coaching of Greg Popovich, coming off a terrible game in Game 4. I think we all expected this to happen. We know how great of a coach Greg Popovich is, and we could not count on having, or the Thunder could not count on having the Spurs play 2 terrible games. I mean, that's just a fact. Like, the Spurs, Game 4 was awful, but we all expected them to come out in Game 5 and play the way that they are capable of playing, especially on their home court. So I have to give props to the best coach in the NBA, in my opinion, Greg Popovich. For this
he did a tremendous job preparing his team for Game 5 because they weren't in sync. Tony Parker was dribbling around too much. Greg Popovich hates when that happens. Really sharpened his team and prepared them for almost a decisive Game 5. Most of the teams that win Game 5 go on to win the series. And since San Antonio has been in those situations, they've won. When they've gone up 3-2, they've won the series 12 out of the last 13 times. The only time they haven't won the series was last year in the NBA Finals when they lost to the Heat after going up 3-2. So their confidence is really high right now. Oklahoma City needs to get more production from their players besides Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. And so it's going to be close, but I think Oklahoma City is going to force a Game 7, and then it's going to go back to San Antonio, where Game 7, it doesn't matter who's hot or what's happening. It's really who produces and shows up. And that's my opinion.
I think it's really interesting, too, how Popovich tried to hide Tony Parker at the defensive end by putting him on Reggie Jackson rather than Westbrook in order to kind of keep his energy going and kind of take the slack off of him at the defensive end. And on the other side, the Thunder were more focused on kind of exposing Tony Parker and not letting him hide. Yeah. But I feel like they didn't do that well enough because Tony Parker was still in the mix. He still had a lot of energy. He was still doing what Tony Parker does. So I think that if they are going to put, if the Spurs are going to put Tony Parker on Reggie Jackson, they need to involve Reggie Jackson more on the offense and make Tony Parker work.
And it's like weird to say this because Oklahoma City has 2 of the best players in the NBA, but they need to get their offense in sync. San Antonio has such a crisp and clean offense. They can pretty much produce any shot they want, whether it's through penetration or kick out for threes to either Danny Green, Kawhi, Ginobili, Marco Bellinelli, Matt Bonner. They have so many options. Patty Mills has stepped up. And whereas Oklahoma City really only has 3 great perimeter players in Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, and Reggie Jackson. They have Serge Ibaka, who can hit the mid-range jumper as well as protect the paint. But their offense is almost stagnant at this point, which is hard to say because it's so explosive. If they're on their game, it's almost an automatic win for Oklahoma City. But they're sort of out of sync at this point, and so they really need to crisp up their offense.
I think that starts with involving Serge in the offense more. They have him back now.
Mm-hmm.
They really they utilize him in Game 4.
Yeah. And I don't know how 100% Serge is. I don't think he's 100%. I think he's more like 90%, which is still good to have him on the floor, but it's just not the same. And so I hope that they involve him more in the offense, and if he can get into that 20-point range, I think Oklahoma City has a great chance of winning.